Okay, everyone, it's 12:30. We're going to go ahead on and get started. Welcome to Tech Tuesday. This Tech Tuesday, we're going to be talking about lock it down. We're going to talk about some ways and some tips and some tricks that you can use to help secure your virtual session using WebEx and Zoom and any other live streaming or collaboration tool that you have that you're going to be using. Let's get started. So let me share same slide. So as one of the first points that you really want to pay attention to is what we seeing a lot on social media is a lot of folks are posting their links on the social media site, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. That's not a good common practice because uh, you're inviting hackers to come into your session or Zoom bombers to come into your session to just take over and do whatever they want to do on your session. But don't post your links there. It's a good idea to advertise your event. And if you're going to use Zoom or you're going to be using WebEx, create a registration. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes about possibly creating a registration that your folks can do ahead of time to register for your event. And then once they register, put your link and passcode information in your registration response back to them. So you can advertise your event, but not necessarily advertise your what link and how to get to the event unless they register for the event. Also, we can talk about this a little later on too. There's some tools that you can use to help if you have to register, or excuse me, if you have to advertise your event. For example, WebEx and Zoom has two options, right? So we could use a WebEx meeting like what we're using now, and Meeting Center it allows everyone to collaborate in this meeting. If I open it up, all of you can show your cameras, you can talk, you can share content from your computer if me, the host, will allow it. On another level, there is a new feature called WebEx Webinar, and Webinar locks all of that down. So as the attendee, you will not be able to use your AV system, your audio or your video. You just coming in to view the event. So unless I give you that permission and bring you to the panel and be a speaker, you won't be able to turn on your audio or your video. So that's another thing. And we'll talk about that a little later. But one of the first things that you might not want to do, if possible, is post your link publicly on social media. The next tool that you want to do to think about is decide on what your viewers really need and what they don't need, and then lock it down. What I mean by that, okay, so if you're doing a training session or you're doing a class, your needs may be different. If it's a class and you want everybody to collaborate and to chime in on whatever you're talking about, of course, yeah, you may want them to have their cameras on or their microphones accessible to that. But if you're just doing a training session or presenting, to a group of folks. It may not even necessary for them to have on their webcam or to turn on their microphones. And if that's the case, you don't need them to have that. During your meeting setup, you can choose whether to have your participants use their video or not. So kind of keep that in mind. If you don't want them to use video or you don't want them to unmute their microphone, simply take off some of those settings. And then when they enter the meeting, they won't be able to use those features. Now, you could, even though we're talking about Meeting Center, and of course, like I just mentioned, and the webinar, those features are disabled automatically. But if you do use Meeting Center and you want to take those features away, you just feel comfortable with Meeting Center. You don't want to go to webinar. You can do those in um, WebEx Meeting Center as well. And a lot of what you can do is just, and I'll show you some of this, is just go over to the participant window, right click on that person's name or click the more button, and you have options to remove that person or to mute them or to disable their video or even to expel them from your session. Okay, so again, don't post your event links on social media, might not be a good idea, and then decide on what your viewers really need. Do they really need video and audio for your session? If not, then take it away. And if they do, you still can give that to them when you want them to have it at a certain part of the session, simply by going to the participant menu and giving privileges to who you want. One of the big things that you're going to want to do is to use the waiting room, the passcodes, and the registration options. This will save you quite a bit using these options, but I got to warn you, this is going to create more work on your part. If you enable that waiting room feature, everyone that is supposed to join your class or meeting, you're going to have to admit them by hand. A little pop-up is going to come on your window and say such and such is in the waiting room. Do you want to admit them? So if you want to go that route, you can. Be sure the passcodes right now is default across Zoom and WebEx, so that's not an option that you have anymore. Every meeting is going to have a passcode or password. And also registration. And we're going to show you some of this, how to do this now. So WebEx Meeting Center has a registration option that you can customize a registration form. Right now, we're going to have it set to name and email, I do believe, and we're going to send one out to the guys that shows you what happened when they register. So if you have a specific list of people that you want to join the session and you don't want any others, you can verify that list by the registration that comes in to you. So when they come into your room, the first thing they have to do is register. You get a list of who's waiting and who has registered, and you admit them manually there. Again, that's creating more work from you. So you may have to get some help and assign a couple of people to assist you with some of that as well. But this is really good security measures that you can use to prevent Zoom bombing and some of the other unwanted stuff. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a second, and I'll show you what I mean here. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm not sharing, and let's go over here. First of all, I'm gonna share my meeting window. I'm gonna go back a topic and share my meeting window so you can see how I can do things. So as you can see, this is the participants, all the participants in this session. If I right click over Durant's name here, I get a menu of options. I can change his role. I can make him the presenter, co-host, or the host. I can unmute him or request that he mute, or I can mute everybody in the session or unmute everybody. If they raise their hand, I can lower, I can chat directly to him. I can move him out of my session into the lobby, or I can move him to front of the stage if I want him to be the presenter at the moment. And if he's doing some naughty stuff that I don't want him to do, or he's not supposed to be here, I can simply expel him. So these are some of the quick features that you have once you're already in your session. All right. So also you can go here to the participant menu and assign privileges, right? So this is another one. Before we go there, let's look at this one where it says anyone can share. This is another feature that you can disable and make it where you can be the only person sharing or whoever you design to be the presenter. Let's go back to assign privileges. So assign privileges, I got everyone in my participants list here. I can go in as global and deselect and select what I want them to do, or I can assign them individually. Just say if I don't want Marquita to view the documents or whatever, I could remove those privileges from her. Okay. So now let's go to, I want to take a moment to show you how to do the waiting room and some of those other features that we talked about on that other slide. Let me get here, change what I'm sharing. Now, this is your WebEx landing page. If you're familiar with WebEx, you already know where this is, uncp.webex.com. It also links off the UNCP homepage. So you got a whole list for you newbies. It's got a whole list of things here, your calendar, your recordings, your preferences that you want. But let's go to home because this is really some good stuff here that they added on recently. So if I want to just start a meeting using my personal room, bam, I don't need to schedule. I can do that. If I want to go to more ways to join, I can get my information for my classroom. Say if I am teaching in Thomas Hall 220 and I want to be able to dial my personal room so I can bring students into my classroom. I can click on more ways to join. I can get my video room link right here and my pin, which I don't think we need pins anymore, but you can get your video room link of james.lewis@uncp.webex.com. You can get your pin. You can go in and change or customize your pin anytime you want to under preferences. Also, right here on this landing page, I can click this copy button to the right, and I can put that in email to send to anybody that I want to have a meeting with or class or tutoring session. Also, I can schedule a meeting or schedule a webinar. Today, we're going to highlight the webinar stuff, but we're not going to go into much detail on that. I got another session at the end of the month called Meeting versus Webinar. You choose or you decide which one you want. We're going to be talking about that webinar part pretty thoroughly there. But today, we just want to talk about scheduling a meeting, right? So if you worked any time in WebEx, most of you already know your way around this. You have to have a topic. You have to have a password by default. That's what these are the red arrows mean there. And we can put the attendees here, of course, right? So I'm gonna put these two guys because I want these two guys to be in the session, right? But I want them to register for the session. Now, to get to some of that, I'm gonna go to advanced options here. And of course, I got audio stuff I can do there. If I want to disable that annoying beep that comes on every time there's a person that enters. Or in this case, you may want to leave it on so you'll know who's coming in and out of your room. So that's totally up to you and your flavor, the flavor of Kool-Aid that you like to drink. So if I go to scheduling options here, I got some really cool things here that allow me to lock down my meeting. Okay, so I got some obvious things here. I can automatically record. And if I wanted to send an invite to Caleb, to my attendees here, if I wanted to send them an invite but don't include the passcode because I want to send that in a separate email, I could just select that option there. Of course, if I want to enable breakout rooms, I could do that. I can lock my meeting. I can make them wait in the lobby by selecting this, and I can make it where guests can't join the meeting without me. Also, I got some features here where I can automatically lock my meeting after a certain time after the meeting starts. All right, that's just really cool if you want to have that. But the registration piece I was talking about is right here. So if we select registration, all right, we get this options here. Now, I'm still working on this part right here that automatically allow you to set up approval rules. Don't hold me to this yet. I'm still working on this part. But this is somewhere where if they put in any keywords or something like that, it automatically approve them to come in my session. I don't really want to do that, but that's the default setup right now. So we're going to leave that. So if I want to custom, I can preview my form. Right now, I'm only asking for their name, first name, last name, and their email address, right? That's all I really care about at the moment. But if I wanted to customize the form and ask them for addresses and match that to the registration stuff to make sure that I have the correct person on there, I can do that. I can add that simply by clicking on the plus boxes of the selection that I want for the registration. And I don't want that for this time. So I'm gonna delete these, but you can see how easy and how quick it is. It's not really hard. It's kind of self-explanatory. So I want Caleb and Durant to register for this session. Now, if there's some meeting options, I could disable some of this stuff. I'm not really concerned about that. Most people that I know aren't really too concerned over that. Now, in WebEx, we thought there was a way that I can stop them from using their camera if I wanted to on this. I don't see that option right now, so I have to find out where that is. On Zoom, that option is readily available, and I'll show you that in Zoom in just a second, where you can go to turn on and off, select the feature where you don't want them to use their camera as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead on and send Durant them this email, and they're gonna get the registration, but they're not gonna come into the meeting because I'm already in a meeting, in a WebEx meeting. But I do want to show you what it looks like and how the registration piece works. So forgive me if it mess up a little bit, but we're going to try to see what happens here. So we're going to go to, I'm going to call this exam prep, because this is the mandatory field. Start. Now it's going to try to launch it, which I don't want it to do. But now let's go back to the home page here and see if I can go here. Okay, so now this is my landing page for my meeting that I just created. As you can see, I got exam prep. I got my meeting information here and everything. Now in the email, Caleb and Durant have received information saying that I invited them to this meeting, but they have to register. So all of your attendees are going to start populating in this area here. And what you want to do is hit manage registration. Now you can see over to the right, before we do that, these are the people that I invited. But if I wanted to add more people, I can start typing their name in there. I want to add Mr. Nick on there. And Mr. Nick, hope you're doing well. But I can send that, and he can see what kind of email that comes through for the registration. I can click on manage registration now, and I can see Caleb is waiting to join the session. He's registered, and I can see that he's waiting. Now I have to approve him. This is a great security setting. And not only does this give me Caleb's name, but it gives me Caleb's email address, where he's coming from and when he registered and so on. And to accept Caleb in my class, on my session, on my virtual event, because I'm pretty sure this is Caleb. I don't think somebody hacked him. There's only one Caleb. But I can select and then hit accept, and Caleb will be into my session. Now, this is really cool, right? But this creates extra work for you. So you may have to get some help, somebody to help you do this, because if you're trying to run your session, or you're the presenter and you have all this going on, it's may be kind of difficult for you to multitask all of that. So it's something to plan and think about. But everyone that accepts that registration and register, they're going to come here before they get allowed into my session. All right, any questions on that? Now that's how you do it in WebEx. That's a quick way to do it in WebEx. So just remember, now we're on our other point. So we're not going to post on social media. We're going to decide what we want our viewers to really have, what they want them to use. If they don't need to use their cameras and microphone, we're not going to give them access to that, because that can just, do some extra stuff. Now we're at the point where we're talking about using waiting room passcodes and registration. So let's talk about. Let me show you how the differences in WebEx and Zoom and how they prep for the registration. So let's go here. I think you're still seeing my window there. So if I go here to my Zoom page, Zoom is uncp. Zoom is uncp.zoom.us. It's also off the uncp.edu homepage under quick links too. All right, so this is what you see. This is the landing page for Zoom. I'm gonna go to meetings, schedule a meeting. All right, so we're gonna go to schedule a meeting here. I got my time, my exam prep. What we're gonna call this. Registration is required. Passcode is optional, unlike WebEx. I can customize that passcode. Waiting room is optional, unlike WebEx now too. So, well, I think WebEx is optional on that. But anyway, this is the option. It's already selected. Required authentication. I'm working on that. From what I understand, what that does is that person has to have an account with Zoom. I don't know if that account is required to be part of your organization or not. So what I mean is, if only people with a uncp.edu email address can join. That's what I got to determine. But anyway, but under here, this is the part I was telling you about, where I can select. Of course, I'm the host. I probably want my video on, but does my participants really need to have their video on? Possibly not. They may not. So I'm gonna make it where they can't turn it on. They don't need their video on. They just come into class or come into this presentation and watching. And if they have questions, they can post questions in the chat area. Excuse me. So let's do that. And Let's look at a couple of other options down here that you have to, if I want them to join at a time. Of course, I want them to mute upon entry. Whether you want breakout rooms, that's also on you. And we can block from specific regions, of course. So let's hit save. And we're going to copy this invitation, and I have to email it to these guys because this is Zoom and not WebEx. So I'm going to go to my email here. And I'm going to paste what I just copied. I know you can't see this, but so in this email, it shows them, let me show you this because this is something that you definitely will probably want to be aware of. This is a little different than normal here. When you turn your registration on, the link looks a little different. So it says, hi there, you're invited to a Zoom meeting, and gives them the date and time, and it tells them they must register in advance for this meeting. You see the difference there? They give them the option, and then it gives them that option. Then after registering, you will receive an email containing information about joining the meeting. So if I didn't turn the registration on, the meeting invite would only have the join link for them to join. All right, so let's go here, and I'm gonna try to share Zoom, which I got a Zoom session going here. So I want you to see what it looks like when these guys get in. So hopefully the session won't mess up too bad. Yes. Hey, Ray. Are you good? Let's see. 1:30. See which one I got going. 12:48. Okay. So we're gonna start this one. Hold on. I'm doing the wrong one, ain't I? Okay. So I'm trying to open my Zoom session. Still. So you can see my entire screen. So this is my Zoom session here. Now, if Caleb, then I may have sent you the wrong one. So these guys are going to register, and then when they register, I think this is the first one that I sent you earlier, guys. Sorry about that. So if I do that, these guys are going to get that registration link. They're going to have to register. And when they register, it's going to come up a pop-up window saying Caleb has joined this session. All right, so let's see. Caleb, I may have opened the wrong one now. So let's see here. Let's go back to it real quick. 46. That's a WebEx one. I didn't open the Zoom one. So let's go back to Zoom here. Okay, start this meeting. Join the computer. Okay, so now you just in the one that I just invited in. So maybe it'll work for us. Like again, I'm in a WebEx session trying to do a Zoom session. So things are going to get a little funky on us. But anyway, if that were to pop up, if they were to register and come in, it would pop up here and say, these guys are in your session. All right, or they're in your waiting room. Do you want to admit? Now, something to think about on that. So you have to be really thoughtful and plan this out. Now, if you're at your desktop computer doing all of this stuff, it may be kind of smooth and everything can go cool. But if you're in a classroom, in a room system doing these things, you really have to think about it and determine your location and maybe even possibly practice ahead of time because your room system it's similar, but it operates a tad bit different. Like if you're in a study room like what we're in now, where we have the Cisco touch panel, we can admit folks from a WebEx session directly from the touch panel. But if you're in a classroom in the new Thomas Hall here, you can't do that from the touch panel. So you have to have a laptop or open that on computer to admit these folks. You see what I'm saying? So you need to think and prepare for it. Again, if you're on your desktop in your office or at home, handling the session, it's great. But if you're in the classroom or going to be in the classroom, you need to think about and plan all of those events and movements separately, and how you're going to do that. And that leads me to my next point, and I'm going to close this Zoom session out here. That leads me to my next point on the PowerPoint. We're almost done here, so I'm going to go back here. Is create a team and assign responsibility on your team for your event. Create a team and assign responsibilities. So you may have to have one person that handles the registration part and is doing the verification for your registration, and a person maybe that admit them to the room. Okay, and then once they get in the room, you may want to have another person that will monitor the chat if you're going to restrict your team from using their audio or video. You may want to have that person to monitoring the chat and relay any questions to you. Also, you may want to have a person or one person to monitor the participant when if they're raising their hands, right? And if somebody start acting up or start doing what you don't want them to do, which was the case of here a few months ago, you just find out who that person is, right click and hit expel, and they're out of your session. That's how easy it is. Now, I say that because we only got 5 people in this session, but some of the sessions that we have on campus got a few hundred in it. So it may be kind of hard or difficult to find. Again, that's where you're going to need to create that team and get you some help that can monitor that. And again, that may be where you have to do what my last and final point says, is to talk about using, well, do you need to use the meeting versus the webinar? The webinar may be what you need to do. The webinar is going to be automatically disables everybody's microphone and their webcam. They can't use it altogether. Well, versus if you're just doing in a meeting, everybody has access to everything unless you restrict it. And the webinar, by default, everything is restricted except your presenters. All right, so that's something to think about. So let's wrap it up. So remember, don't post your event on social media. If you can help it, decide on what you really want your viewers to really need. And then what you don't want them to have, lock it down. Don't give them access to it. Be sure that you're using the waiting room, the passcodes, and all of that other stuff, the registration. Also, make certain that you are, let me get back to my slide. I clicked off my slide. Oh, create you a team and assign responsibilities. And then last, which should be probably first, if others agree, think about whether you really need meeting versus webinar. And I know we haven't talked about the webinar too much, but come back later in the month when we're talking about that. We're going to show you the cool things of the WebEx webinar. It is really out of sight, and we think you're going to like it. All right. Thank y'all so much for coming. My time is almost up. So look, hope y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week for another session of Tech Tuesdays. Thanks so much.